So we're going to shoot into a video today where I'm going to explain to you how I use a simple, almost idiotic gimmick that's hiding in plain sight to build a $100 million plus empire, to help people to get super rich, to teach nerds how to have insane social skills, and to change the world. And this gimmick, which is hiding in plain sight, it is so obvious that you can't even see it, will cause people to come up to me in the street and start shaking and crying and almost worshiping me at my feet, saying, "You changed my life. Because of you, my life is different." I use this gimmick to coach the people who are in the PayPal mafia to make stupid amounts of money. I've used this gimmick to help little nerds run around in bars and clubs and go chow with people and wind up being the coolest person there. I use this little gimmick to help people to come up with multi-million-dollar ideas and to switch on their brain. It is a dumb little gimmick. It is so dumb and it's hiding in plain sight and you just can't see it. And if you would just use it immediately, your entire life would change dramatically right now. So if this is clickbait, you can let me know. You can let me know what you think, but I'm gonna guarantee you it isn't clickbait. And I know this because this has basically changed my life and changed the life of millions of people. Here's what it is. Basically, your brain sits there in a state that I like to call a derp state. And it sits there pretty much permanently. You're spaced out, you barely know what planet you're on, and in effect, you're dumb, okay? And you know all that distraction you have and procrastination and weak will, and the fact that you can't think laterally, the fact that you see someone that you're attracted to and you can't start a conversation with them and you can't keep the conversation going and you think that you need something to say and you just can't think of an idea and you don't know how to start a business, all that stuff. That's not entirely your fault as much as you think. Basically, your brain has been switched off by your interaction with modern society. And with this simple little gimmick, we can switch your brain back on, literally the next couple minutes. We'll just switch it back on, and you will feel such a dramatic shift that you might start crying. You might feel like you're in ecstasy. It's insane how this little gimmick works. Here's what it is, okay? Your brain will keep you in that derp state until you prove to your brain, and you've got to prove to it, that it is okay to switch on and that you won't get in trouble or killed or beat up if you're able to switch on your brain. So back in the caveman and cavewoman era, way back in the day, if all of a sudden you became very, very loud, very boisterous, very expressive, you started laughing, you started smiling, you became radiant, your energy became expansive, what would happen is that other people would see that and they'd become attracted to you. And they would come and they would mate with you. They'd start mating with you, okay? How do you know this? Go out to a bar or club, act in the way that I just told you, and people start coming up to you, jumping on you, dancing with you. It's completely insane, right? You'll see this when you go out. Just try it. Just try being very boisterous when you go out. Watch what happens. So because your brain knows that if you become very, very boisterous, that you'll just start randomly mating, okay? It's actually a mating thing. Your brain knows this, then your brain knows that if you become like that in a caveman, cavewoman tribe, where your status isn't guaranteed, like you don't really know where you stand in the caveman tribe, your brain is like, well, I don't know where I stand. Like, am I high status? Am I low status? Like, you know, are people okay with me doing this? Or, you know, am I hooking up with someone else's mate? And you don't know that. Because your brain doesn't know that, like maybe you haven't created the different alliances to, you know, to be secure in your mating and secure in your status in that tribe. If your brain is not sure that you've hit that point, what it will do is it'll actually cause your brain chemistry to go lower. Your brain neurochemistry goes lower, and it will contract your voice. It'll make it where it's very, very hard to be funny. It makes it hard for you to assert your opinions. It makes you feel very uncomfortable with yourself. It causes you to become hyper vigilant of how people are giving you approval or disapproving of you, right? So you're walking around like micromanaging perceptions, self-qualifying to people. It causes you to become very, very self-qualifying. Like, I'm cool because of this. I'm not bad, you know? I hope that you like me. And then you can't speak loud, you can't joke around, you can't tell stories, you can't think of ideas, you don't trust your ideas, and you're sitting there and basically you've dimmed your light. So I just wanted to jump in the video to let you know that I'm actually out here today on the beach, practicing what I preach, doing all the things that I tell you to do in these videos. I don't just do seminar videos where I tell you that you should work on your social skills. I go out and I meet and talk to people all the time. Now, as I'm out here doing this, here's what's funny. I've got students that are out here with me watching exactly what it is that I do, and they're kind of blown away by it. But then what I'm doing that I think is blowing them away even more is I'm showing them exactly how to do it so they can get the exact same result. Now imagine for everybody that's out here, for the rest of their lives, if they want to make a business connection, they want to network, they want to make friends, they want to work on making a genuine connection with someone very, very special, they know exactly what to do forever and ever because we came out here and did this work. Well, here's the thing. This work is not for everybody. You've got to be a very, very special kind of person to have what it takes to come out here and do this. You've got to be an action taker. You've got to be somebody who understands the value of knowing how to meet people anytime, anywhere, and realizing that your net worth is your network, okay? When you know everybody, what winds up happening? You make more cash, you're happier, and you wind up raising the vibe for everybody. It's an incredible skill. Well, what I've done is a lot of people have asked me about these trainings, and so I created a brand new website. It's actually brand new with a very, very deep video that's really shocking. It's a shocking video. It's kind of an intense video where I go very, very deep on what it is that this looks like. Like imagine meeting up with me personally and going out and doing this. It's a shocking, crazy experience. And on the website in the video, I show exactly what it is that you can expect. It's really crazy. So if you want to see this, click the link below. And if you think that you're somebody that has what it takes, because this is not for everybody, and you've got to actually add value to the group, okay? In a situation like this, you can't be a leech. You've got to be someone who's bringing energy and is serious about results. If you think that that's you, fill out the form right on the website, and what I'll do is come and meet up with you in person, and we're gonna learn this together. But again, that's only if you're the right fit. If you think that that's you, you click the link below, and we'll be sitting out here together doing this and change your life. Anyway, click the link, and back to the video. And your brain does this because it's a vestige of the caveman, cavewoman days. What would happen is that if you increase your light back then, people could come and kill you. And so people who didn't have that natural dimmer when your status wasn't guaranteed, if they didn't have that dimmer, they'd die. And so that's how you evolved. To be very clear about this, by the way, there are some people who don't have that light dimming thing. It's called a psycho, okay? You know, they don't have impulse control. And then they just go, oh, it'd be cool if I were to rob a bank, right? And then they just walk in and then they get put in jail because they don't have that impulse control. So it's not bad that you have that impulse control. It's not bad that that light gets dimmed. Look, let's say, for example, that we crash landed in Alaska and I knew how to hike out. I knew the way out and you didn't. And then you looked at me, and because I know that I know the way to hike out because we crash landed in Alaska, you know the movie The Edge? I love that movie, The Edge. Well, if I know how to get us home safely, then my brain will actually give me brain neurochemistry. It'll make me feel confident. I'll say, look, I know the way home. Bro, I got this. I know the way home. Trust me. I'm going to get us home. We're going to kill the bear. I can't if you remember that. What one man could do, another man could do. Say it, Bob. Right, you remember that? The movie The Edge?
Say it!
I'm going to kill the bear.
Say it again!
I'm going to kill the bear.
And again! I'm gonna kill the bear! Good. What one man can do, another can do.
What one man can do, another can do.
Say it again!
What one man can do, another can do.
And again!
What one man can do, another can do.
Yeah. You're goddamn right. Today, I'm gonna kill the motherfucker.
If you know how to get home, you'll feel confident. If you don't, you'll naturally lose confidence. So what humans do is we kind of look at each other and it's like, are you sure you know how to go home? And you start looking at their eye contact and how they express themselves and like, do they feel confident? And then if they do, we kind of trust them inherently. We kind of say, okay, you can lead, I'll dim my light and become compliant. You can be the leader, I'll be the follower. But you know, maybe we get back to Anchorage, Alaska, and then ask you how to get to Best Buy, right? And you know the way to Best Buy. Well, then all of a sudden, I don't know how to get to Best Buy. You look like you're sure, and then my light gets dim, and then yours raises, and then I become very, very compliant to you, and I allow you to dictate the frame of reality to me, okay? So this is going on all the time. Now, it's a healthy mechanism. It stops you from doing something bad, It stops you from being overly confident, right? People that are narcissistic that just are too grandiose and they think they could do anything, they get in trouble. They have grandiosity bias, although they don't have trouble getting a date, right? That's why, see, the channel's like, oh, we all dated narcissists, right? Because they don't have trouble getting a date because they're always grandiose. But the point being, like, it's healthy that you have that mechanism, but the problem is when that gear just gets locked in for years at a time, it could honestly rot you out at your very core, because here's what happens. You're feeling negative and stifled all the time. Your life gets worse and worse, and then you start thinking negative thoughts. Well, the mind builds synaptic superhighways in your brain for whatever thoughts you think all the time. So as you're thinking negative thoughts all the time, you're literally rewiring your brain to think negative thoughts. And then whatever emotion that you access the most often actually becomes an addiction. That's why someone who's not used to being happy much, even if they're happy for a little bit or their life situation gets better, they become miserable very quickly, no matter how good life gets, right? So you have negative synaptic superhighways being embedded in your brain from being stifled for too long. You have negative emotional addictions from being stifled for too long, and by the end of it, you get depressed, and some people sadly commit self-harm. My cousin Dylan commits suicide. And there's a lot of people who will hurt themselves. It's really, really sad. I remember when I was young, I couldn't get out of it either. And it was like decades of my life were just gone. So how do you break out of this? Like I said, it's kind of just a gimmick. It's like this silly, ridiculous hack. It's crazy. It's so crazy. So here's why everybody's always freaking out going, Owen, like all this stuff, okay? It's super crazy. So what I'll do is I'll get you to come to, say, a seminar and maybe later to a social gathering, okay? So I'll bring you to a seminar. And I'll say to you, what I want you to do is go, okay, and I am going to be nice here. People are enjoying themselves, family environment and being quiet, okay? But, right, but very loud, okay? There, in a seminar room, we go very loud, okay? Here, we're going to chill. I know you're like, do it here too, okay? I don't mind doing it, but I want to be polite. So basically what happens is that I bring you to the front of a seminar room, and you go, and then I'll say to you, how loud do you think you were out of 10? And inevitably, no matter how many videos you've seen, your brain is going to mess with you and make you misperceive how loud you were. It's going to trick you. Your brain's actually going to trick you. Your RAS, reticular activating system, is going to trick you. And what's going to happen is you're going to think that you were a 10, but you're really at a 2 or a 3. And it's so hilarious what you're going to do, because you're going to walk up, you're going to take this big breath and go, hey, and I'll be like, bro, you're like LARPing, like live action role playing, LARPing, like you're faking yelling. And you think it's real. And I'll say to the audience, was that real? And then the audience goes, no, he wasn't yelling, or she wasn't yelling. And then you'll always see the same thing. The person in the front's like, what? No way. And I just seen this for years, okay? No way. So then what I do is I just keep pushing you to yell louder and louder and louder. And then eventually you break through. This is a little bit sad and it's a bit morbid, okay? And I do this because frankly, it's often the only thing that works. I'll say, how loud would you yell if your mother or your daughter or your sister would get harmed, would come to harm? And now all of a sudden you have the social permission because you're there to save a life. So now you see how loud the person is, right? So I'll be like, show me a 10. They're like, hey, and it's like a 2. And then I go, what if your mom would get hurt? And then boom, it comes out. It's crazy. It's a trick that I use. It's a gimmick, like I told you. So then what happens is that their brain goes, wait a minute, I didn't get in any trouble for the fact that I just yelled. Wait a sec, I'm allowed to mate. I'm allowed to express. I'm allowed to be myself. I'm allowed to have my own thoughts. And what happens is that the brain neurochemistry switches on, you become unstifled. Now, where this gets interesting is that, and this is really, really crazy, so I want you to test this. In a particular environment, if you've unstifled in one environment, but you're not used to being unstifled, you haven't internalized it yet, then you'll feel good in that particular environment. But if you move over 50 feet, then you might get stifled again because your brain is managing that maybe somewhere else in the caveman, cavewoman tribe, you don't have the proof not promises in your brain. So you move over somewhere else and then you become stifled again. But then if you go, hey, and you do it again, well, then what happens is you get unstifled there. And then here's how it works. If you do this all through the environment, okay? Like for example, have you ever seen a comedian, as soon as they get into a venue, they walk the crowd? They're actually unlocking the crowd. Or say that you go to a bar club, go and chat with everybody expressively and kind of just willpower your way through and do that in the whole environment. And then by the time that you've done that in the whole environment, you've unlocked the environment like a comedian walking the crowd. And then your brain switches on. Now look, once you've had a deep, profound internal shift from maybe a period of time doing this, or maybe you were raised well by your parents, right? Frankly, if you have parents that raise you well, you have that winner effect, that good brain chemistry permanently. That's why parents are so important. But let's say that you didn't have the perfect parents and it takes a while. Well, then, if you've been doing it for a couple of years, it becomes a lot more permanent. But initially, you've got to kind of unlock it. And if you just do that process, it's consistent. And now all of a sudden, if you do that process, you have frames of reference of what you're capable of. You say, wait a minute, if I just forcibly unlock my brain, all this stuff happens. Now what happens is, you know, you go around a venue or you go around a seminar room, and here's the shifts that you'll notice. Your voice will unlock in a way that you never knew possible. It just unlocks. It's like, before, if I told you to yell really loud, it would actually hurt your voice and it would wear your voice down very, very badly. But all of a sudden you're about 5-10x the volume, but not even really yelling. It's like you're talking, maybe with a bit of added energy and emphasis, but it doesn't hurt your voice. And then a joke comes to mind and you just say it and it pops out. Then you have a story and the story just smacks. Like, it just smacks like the best story. You have shifts in cadence naturally. There's things about your communication that are entertaining because you feel an impulse, almost like a young child before they've been told no and before they've been told they suck and that they're losers and punished. But if you look at, like, you know, like a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old, like my son Tristan just parties, right? Because he's always being encouraged. So he sort of just does what he feels. So he sings, he dances, he's jumping around, he's doing imitations, he's playing with you, he's having fun. He does that because he hasn't been shamed yet. He hasn't had that beauty shamed out of him yet. So what happens is that when you get the proof not promises, you get back that childlike state that you believe in yourself. And you rediscover that self-love, you rediscover that light. Again, this is why so many people like come up to me, hugging me, thanking me. And then all of a sudden, maybe, you know, you see someone you want to talk to and you naturally go talk to them. No anxiety about saying hi. Then you think to yourself, you know, I've always had this business idea. How would I flesh that out? And because your mind is working, and instead of being stifled and dimmed, your mind starts coming up with all these super, super, super crazy ideas. And then you say to yourself, I'm going to do it. Because you actually have the confidence to go and do it. And then you start making money. And then you also realize, wait a minute, before I was micromanaging, I was hypervigilant, I was stuck in my head, and then I thought that the only way out of that was to maybe if someone validated me, or if I got approval from someone, or if I made some money, or got a car, or if I got more built. And then you realize your looks and money don't matter at all. They're just tools, they're fun, but you don't need them for social acceptance, because when you're just being your full self, you get the most social acceptance, you'll see that. And then you just go from there and you completely, utterly tear it up. It's just, you feel happy inside yourself. So you basically have a spiritual awakening. I mean, think about this. You're getting more money, more social success, spiritual awakening. You're no longer hypervigilant. You're no longer seeking approval. You feel good. You feel at peace in your own body. They've done studies. Robert Sapolsky's done studies where baboons that feel good in their body, the winner effect is kicked on, and they get sick way less. Whereas people that are stressed and they feel that they're lower status get sick way more. So this gimmick, you could even see it happening in nightclubs, where if you go out and you sort of sing like happy birthday to you, and you sing it half-hearted and you kind of punch at the wall, not through the wall, then what winds up happening is often people will come up and actually threaten you, and they'll yell at you and they'll yell, shut up. They do it instinctively because that's that caveman instinct. It's sad, actually. It's kind of sad. But if you fully own it and you just have fun and you go crazy, then what'll happen is other people will embrace you. They'll start carrying you around and going for he's a jolly good fellow type vibes, right? And everybody's like coming up, high-fiving you, joining your party, dancing with you, because you're fully unstifled. They go, oh, that's where the status is. They join up. There's actually an incredible old video where it shows how to start a movement, and the first person's just there dancing, and then the first follower comes, and they're just dancing. And then a couple other people come, and then a couple more people start dancing, a couple more come. And all of a sudden, there's like a social pressure where before people felt social pressure not to join the small group, now all of a sudden people feel social pressure to join the group because the followers wind up joining the group because it's actually become like the mass audience. So I do this, by the way, in bars and clubs. I do it all the time where I go out and I just start jumping up and down by myself. And as I'm doing that, other people see it and then they come and they join in. And then I get the whole bar club moshing, super crazy. Or, you know, I'll say, hey, you should propose on your knees, on your knees. And I'll look at the bar and go, on your knees. And then the whole bar is like, on your knees. And they all start going super crazy. And they start having fun. So you can actually start a movement like this. So you actually wind up becoming a movement creator. And I wound up teaching a lot of this content to the PayPal Mafia. I wound up teaching it to the speechwriters of an incredibly famous, probably the most famous president. I wound up teaching this stuff to some of the top business owners in the world. I wound up teaching this stuff to many of the top long-form content creators that you see on the internet that I'm great friends with, and I showed it to them. And they're all like, oh, and you changed my life, you changed my life. I also got this crazy dating life, crazy social life. You know, I run parties in LA, popular in LA, and it's like just this silly little gimmick. So that's the little gimmick, the funny little gimmick that I want to show you is just this idea that you can kickstart your brain's neurochemistry with proof, not promises. You just kind of force yourself to use your voice a little bit and you go nuts. And so one of the ways that I teach it as well is, people join the group, they feel comfortable because they're hiding within the group. They're more comfortable hiding within the group. What I'll often do is I will have the whole audience go, hey, with the person up at the front. Now they feel safe. Within the safety of the group, the acceptance of the group, with everyone yelling and projecting, they're able to suddenly do it, right? It's like those dances, the Macarena dance, like these dances where everyone can kind of copy it, so people like copying it. If everyone's yelling, then what winds up happening is they finally can unstifle. But then what will happen is I'll tell the crowd to be quiet, and then then the person in the front suddenly goes quiet too. I go, no, we're gonna do it again. But when I tell the crowd to be quiet, I want you to lock in on that feeling of being outside your head and trusting yourself, and then keep the volume. And then what happens is that they're often, not every time, but often able to hold that volume. And then I say, lock in on that feeling. Notice how you're not hyper vigilant of what people are thinking. No, and here's the key. Notice that you are your own focal point of orientation. Like, you're not finding yourself in how people are thinking of you or looking at you. You're finding yourself just kind of like you're the main character in your own movie. You ever heard that this new thing on TikTok these days? They call it main character energy. But I had a video from years ago where I said you've got to be the primary character in your own movie. I didn't hear that on TikTok. I actually thought of that because it was just something that I observed that, if I'd go out to a bar or club and I was kind of looking at everybody else and what they thought and being hypervigilant, that I sucked. But if I was kind of just like outside my head and kind of just seeing the world externally and expressing, I'd crush it. So I realized it's like you've got to get in this kind of momentum state and you crush it. Now, when I teach you this when I go out in public, I often just jokingly call it the square method, and here's what I do. So I'll say to you, look, when you go out, you're just gonna go chat with everybody. And when you chat with everybody, you're going to unlock the whole venue. So in other words, you go into a venue and you just be very friendly and never pester anybody. If someone doesn't want to talk to you, just say, have a great night. Always make sure people want to talk to you. If they don't, so just say have a great night and just keep it moving. That's polite, just good manners, right? But just view it like the town square, people are there to meet people. So you go to a venue, and you just go say hi to people, and you just say hi to everybody, and you minimize time in between the interactions. And after every single interaction, rather than being hyper vigilant and looking for what they think, okay, be aware if someone doesn't want to talk to you and just say have a good night. Always, just leave. Always just leave. Always have consent to talk to someone. It has to be win-win. But generally what I want you to do is, rather than looking for their validation and finding yourself in their validation and finding your emotions and fulfillment in their validation, find your sense of fulfillment in saying 1,000 out of 10. Not 10 out of 10, because then you'll say, well, it was really a 5 out of 10. But 1,000 out of 10. Then say, who the F would have the balls to do that, okay? I'm going to be quiet here, right? Or just who the heck would have the balls to do that? Who the heck would have the balls to do that? Then what I want you to do is I want you to just look at it and say, what might I tweak or what might I fine-tune about the way that I interact with that person? But just maybe tweak something, and then find something funny about it. And so what you're doing is you're creating a feedback loop, almost like being a good parent to yourself, right? Like encouraging yourself. Not because, what do they teach parents? Don't tell the kid, oh, you got a great result. Tell the kid you made a great effort. If you teach your kids it's about having a great effort, that kid will grow up emotionally healthy. If you're always saying to yourself, oh, they have to like me or it's bad, you're making yourself mentally sick. So instead what you do is you make yourself mentally healthy by focusing on effort. In the Bhagavad Gita, the great spiritual text, they say you don't have the right to the fruit of the action, you have the right to the action itself. So what happens is, by you focusing on the action itself, suddenly your dopamine goes up naturally. It's kind of like you got a good response, but you gave that love to yourself. But you fine tweak it a little bit. You don't have to just keep banging your head against a concrete wall. You can just kind of notice what you might change. But it's like 1,000 out of 10, who the heck would have the balls to do that, the guts to do that? Maybe fine tune and tweak, and then find something funny about it so you're laughing. And then immediately chat the next person right away. As you cross that whole venue, you're now beginning to unlock it, right? Say that a stand-up comedian walks the crowd, you're unlocking the venue. When you get to the top corner, give yourself a big congratulations and do it again to the next corner. Pause, give yourself a big congratulations, go to the next corner. You've been tweaking the whole time, learning the whole time, adapting the whole time, getting better the whole time, and laughing the whole time, and getting dopamine the whole time, stacking dopamine. Then you do the whole thing, and by the time that you get through each of the 4 corners, you've now met everybody, you've unlocked the venue, you've given yourself massive props. What do you know about human beings? When you're winning and winning and winning, you get a lot of dopamine, right? Someone's got a Ferrari and they're tall and they look good and they're running a party, they get dopamine. But what if you don't have all that? Because the funny thing is, if you had all that and you felt good, people would like you, and then you attribute it to the Ferrari. But it's actually because of the dopamine and how the dopamine lets you get out of your head and be expressive and be confident and be yourself. And not be hyper vigilant and approval seeking and start self-qualifying all the time. Self-qualifying, right? You wouldn't self-qualify, you just feel good in your own body. So what would happen is well, you say to yourself, well, if I don't have a Ferrari, I don't have a mansion, I'm not 6'5", 6'5", fire dance, blue eyes, whatever that song, right? If you're not that, then what you do is you just give that dopamine to yourself. You give it to yourself. And then now you've jacked your dopamine, you feel good, and people wind up seeing that dopamine in you, that you feel good, you're expressing yourself, and you feel incredible. So here's the point. It's amazing when you have this down. It's just incredible. So you might have guessed this so far, but what we're talking about has massive implications on, first of all, society being very compliant to all sorts of crazy leadership, right? And we've seen this as far back as World War II. We've seen this as far as 2020. Crazy, crazy leadership, and a population that's very spaced out and very compliant. But in addition to this, we also see how this sort of dopamine deficit drives consumer culture. Because if someone is in a brain neurochemistry deficit, and they're very compliant, which means they're probably gonna be told to do things that hurt themselves and actually put them even more in a negative loop and like a negative spiral. But then in addition, they can't find a way back to feeling good. Well, then what are they gonna think they should do to feel good? They're gonna think they should buy consumer goods, jackets, cars, houses, IKEA catalog furniture. The movie Fight Club represents this perfectly, where the main character, okay, Tyler Durden's character, he tries to find himself by being complete by getting every single item from IKEA. And then his subconscious mind just rejects the program so much that he goes and blows up his entire house and then creates a fight club just to get his freaking dopamine back. And that movie accurately represented a sort of an underlying dynamic that exists, and that's why people could sort of intuitively feel like this is an incredibly powerful movie. Likewise, the movie The Matrix, where people could feel they're a battery for this larger system that they don't understand. That compliance and that consumer culture, it is just absolutely massive. Watch the movie The Century of the Self by Adam Curtis, where it talks about how way back in the early 1900s, we were actually actively propagandizing the population, not to know who they are via their character and their good deeds, but rather by their consumer choices. So this implies a lot about society. Now, let me tell you about some of the crazy, freaky things that'll happen at my events. It's really wild, okay? So I had this brother and sister, and look, I'm a big fan of Christianity, obviously, but, big fan, right? But they had been raised in an environment where it was sort of like a more suppressive and shame-based form of Christianity. So they grew up homeschooled, they grew up judging everybody else, and they grew up highly, highly isolated. Very, very much caring what people think, shame-based. And so what I got them to do is we went out on the street and we just started hooting and hollering and having a fun time and chatting people. And it was funny because this brother and sister, and they're just there working on their social skills, they wound up getting literally in a sober version of a high. They were laughing uncontrollably. They're like, and they're from French Canada. They're like, we're high, we are high, Owen, we are high. They couldn't stop laughing, jumping around, giddy, dancing like they're in heaven on earth. They couldn't believe it. And they're like, how are we this high when we're sober? They couldn't understand. This is what's called your natural state. Your natural state is basically high, which is crazy to think about. But when we love modern society and we love the benefits of it. And I love a lot of the benefits of it. Look, I'm here in New York, top of the rock, amazing, beautiful. But at the same time, we can also realize that being taken out of nature, taken out of our natural environment, we're plugged in the system that actually can suppress our consciousness. So for us to get the best of what it is that society has to offer, we have to be able to enjoy society and participate in it, but we've got to understand how to unleash our natural potential, how to raise our winner effect. So another funny incident, and this is just like kind of like random, I guess, but I thought it might be worth sharing. It's kind of a neat story. So oftentimes what will happen is people will come on my trainings. And some of the people who come to my social trainings, they wind up being very, very, very committed. They go out a ton after, and they get really good. And I'll say, look, I've got myself, my main instructors, my main paid instructors, but if you want to come add extra value, bonus value, not, you being the main the main person running it, but if you want to come add to it a little bit, and if it's someone that I see is very, very committed, they've taken multiple trainings, they know their stuff top to bottom, I'm like, look, you're kind of at a point where, maybe my training took you from here to here, But then for you to go to the next level, you'd actually have to take a leadership role, because that would be the next level in your winner effect, is taking a leadership role. So I, because I do these trainings, always have these incredible people that can add value to my trainings, right? So all my trainings wind up having people that are guests. And again, I've got myself there, I've got my paid team there, the pros, but I literally have hundreds at all time, literally hundreds of people that can coach, being honest, at a similar level to what I can, which is crazy. And the reason why that is because they understand how to kick on their natural brain neurochemistry, and suddenly they look like me. So what winds up happening is, whenever I'm running up training, I'll often say to people, I'll say, look, if you wind up taking a couple trainings with me, and if you're really good, and if you show me, maybe a little bit of proof from social media about what you've been up to and your results, and I can see that you're clearly killing it, feel free to come by and help out. And what's crazy is people clamor to do this. People literally clamor to do this. Like they fight and clamor over these positions to come and help me out. And I think the reason why they do it is because what happens when you're taking a leadership role? What happens if I let you pop on stage for 2-3 minutes? What happens if I let you lead another person? Well, guess what happens? You're taking a leadership role, your brain neurochemistry goes up. Look, I remember this when I first started coaching back in the day, and I was helping people, and I was like, why am I so much better when I'm helping other people? Like, why do I crush it so hard when I'm helping other people? But then when I'm on my own, it's actually harder. Well, the mere act of coaching someone else and leading them raises your brain's chemistry. You feel super happy and you wind up crushing it. It's a crazy thing. Why do they often say that behind it? And I would have a nuanced take on this, but why is there an expression that behind every great man's a great woman? Well, with the right support system, a great man may have a great woman who supports him and believes in him and raises dopamine, keeps up his winner effect. So you can see that this is very, very multifaceted in a number of different ways, okay? But I would also say that it even goes a little bit deeper, because it goes into some kind of darker or nefarious stuff. Let me give an example. A lot of the time, you'll have some kind of a guru, and the guru is getting dopamine off of the audience. You know, whatever brain neurochemistry exact cocktail that we're talking about, but that winner effect, right? They're getting state from it. But then the audience is getting state from the guru. So rather than them actually having independent thinking and seeing the world through their own eyes and stabilizing their dopamine, what winds up happening is the guru's at the front like, I am the guru. Wouldn't know anyone like that, right? You know, but the people in the audience are also being told what to do. So it's sort of this recursive loop of people that are not able to see the world through their own eyes, and then using each other in this weird sort of circuit. And then oftentimes they wind up getting more and more disconnected from reality, and then it just feeds their dopamine, and they go deeper and deeper into sort of weird reality tunnel, and they just can't get out of it. So it's a little bit strange. Right now, in addition, you might have heard how sometimes people are called, just an expression they call them, haters. And the idea of someone being a hater is they realize, wait a minute, why go out and accomplish something or unstifle myself when I can just say that everybody else sucks? And if you just frame everybody else who you view as competition in some way, or just even random people, random celebrities, random people online, random people on the internet, and you just say this person sucks. Like, somebody watched this video could go out and actually try what I'm saying, but that would be maybe like 5 out of 10 challenge, but it would only be a 1 out of 10 challenge to write, this all sucks. Right? So you will literally see under this video people saying, this all sucks, and I don't know, maybe it sucks, but it could also be the phenomenon that you see on the internet with haterade that comes from people trying to get dopamine. And this is why platforms like TikTok that are very, very short with a lot of jump cuts and not a lot of extended focus tend to attract people that are in what's called a coping state, right? They're in coping, not thriving. There's a clear line between coping and thriving. The line between coping and thriving, by a way of looking at it, a major element is, have you stabilized your dopamine? Have you stabilized your state? And if you're above, then you're acting from thriving, cup runneth over, you're in abundance, you feel good, you're in flow, you're not at deficit. But if you're in a cope below that, then all of a sudden it's like, you know, I just think that you're really nice, I can't give you any constructive feedback. But, like they can't take any constructive feedback, they only want a pat on the back, but then they simultaneously run around hating on everybody else because that will increase their dopamine. So if you actually put very inspiring, longer form videos on a place like TikTok, you read the comments, it's just unbelievable. Like, go look up any self-help guru who has really quality, uplifting content, but it's maybe long or nuanced. You look that up on a platform like TikTok, and not every case, but many cases, it's thousands of responses. People kind of swarming it like a vampire feeding frenzy, like a bunch of jackals or hyena type vibes, just ripping at the meat going, I hate him, he sucks, she sucks, they're terrible and all this. And it's because they're getting dopamine from it. They're in an unstable dopamine pattern. So people wind up with an unstable dopamine pattern using consumer culture. They wind up joining, guru circuits. They wind up being haters. And it just creates a lot of strange dynamics, right? They get involved in consumer culture because their state isn't stabilized. What I would suggest that you do instead is realize, look, it's not about comparing yourself to other people. It's about getting into a flow, because once you're in a flow and that joy comes from outside in and you've stabilized it because you've got used to activating that winner effect and you just got used to doing that, well, now you don't have to run around, hating on people, being consumer culture, joining weird group things, being the kind of person that goes along with the Milgram experiment, being psychologically suppressed, going along with all this bad stuff. You can stop all that stuff, and you can stop the pattern of being someone who self-qualifies, being someone who's hyper-vigilant. You can stop all these patterns, and most of all, you can stop this kind of ego pattern where you walk up to someone and try to provoke a reaction, like making them laugh, or try to provoke a reaction, like get them to like you. And then maybe you walk out and socialize, and all that you're doing is trying to provoke reactions, just hoping that you can get people to like you, button pushing them, hoping to get them to like you, rather than just tapping into flow and expressing from inside out rather than trying to get outside in. What does that look like? What that looks like is that you're entertaining yourself. You're going, entertain myself. You are your central point of orientation. You're entertaining yourself. Then, because you feel entertained, you're not approval seeking, you sort of emanate that out like a Care Bear. People feel that. That's called self-amusement. I find it funny and shoot it to you. I feel good when I say it and shoot it to you. But if I'm looking to you for approval, I'm hyper vigilant of your approval, I'm in a dopamine deficit, you can feel it. You can feel that I'm trying to manipulate you or control you to get your approval. Maybe I'm self-qualifying. Maybe I'm anxious. I have a bit of anxiousness with you, try to get your approval. And what winds up happening is you can feel that first of all, that I'm at a deficit, so I'm kind of a value leech. I'm a validation leech, value leech, energy leech. I need something from you. You can kind of tell inherently I'm low status in a cope, so you kind of want to get away. It's repulsive. It's a value take, right? And you want to get away. Better is to basically do this. Go around, unstifle yourself, get a sense of what that feels like, get reference experiences for how that is, that it's awesome. Then, like I do with the people in the seminar, hey, and then I go boom, and then the rest of the crowd's like, hey, and they love it. Get used to doing that. Maybe come out with me. Maybe even someday, if you've got a lot of experience, attend a bunch of my programs, come out and actually help out in some of my programs, and then get used to taking a leadership role, or create a group in your city and help other people in your city, or take any kind of leadership role. But don't get addicted to the ego kick from it. No. Rather, just do it to add value. Get in that loop of adding value. Maybe become a significant other where you take a leadership role. Maybe become a parent. One of the great joys of being a parent is this. Become an entrepreneur, become a leader, and add value to society. I think what you're gonna find is as you do this, you're gonna feel really good, and it's gonna stabilize that dopamine in you, and your results are just gonna go up and up and up. And you're gonna realize you're unplugged from this entire crazy matrix that's putting everybody down and really reborn. It's just amazing. So here's what we're gonna do. We're actually gonna go over to one of my favorite places right now, and we're gonna wrap this up. And I hope that what you're getting out of this is honestly just a simple gimmick that I've learned over the years. It can completely and totally change your life. So the conclusion, what I'm saying to you, is that your dopamine is often based on relative status. Your dopamine is based on how you perceive yourself as stacking up to other people in the tribe. And that's why you try to go out and get consumer goods. That's why you sometimes shrink, because it lowers your dopamine to protect you and to keep you safe. That is why sometimes people become a hater. That's why sometimes people join some kind of a guru. That's why sometimes people are in a cope. That's why sometimes people are in a thrive. There's these different dynamics that I've talked about. And what I'd leave you with is two things. First of all, it's an upward spiral or a downward spiral. And second of all, you've got to take control of that upward spiral or downward spiral. So here's what I mean. Look, if you're in state, if you're in the zone, you go out, dopamine's good, state's good, whatever you want to call it. I don't know the exact neurochemical, but you know the point, right? Look up Robert Sapolsky, the studies on baboons. You'll see all this stuff. It's crazy, okay? So when your dopamine's good, what'll happen is it winds up being an upward spiral because You're more expressive, you're more confident, you're very self-assured, easy to talk to people, your genius has been switched on, you're making more money, you're having better social results, you feel at peace, you feel good, you make proactive decisions from your core rather than reactive decisions. And what happens is people see this. And when people see this, what happens? They wind up liking you more. They wind up doing business with you. They wind up being intimate with you. They wind up being attracted to you. They wind up hanging out with you. They wind up laughing at your jokes. So what happens is when you can create a core of internal validation, I'll go in steps. When you feel validated, when you have approval and feel validated, then you cement yourself, and then what winds up happening is other people see that, like you more, and then add fuel to the fire. They give you more external validation. So as other people start to buy into your frame, laugh at your jokes, pay you money, go socialize with you, go on dates with you, et cetera, it's an upward spiral because you feel better and better and better. Money's going up, dating life's going up, everything's going up. So it becomes an upward spiral. The problem is a lot of us out there can be in a downward spiral, and you wind up driving people away. You can't think of ideas, you're compliant, can't make money, your body's unhealthy because you're loaded with cortisol, like Robert Sapolsky did in his studies from Stanford, and it becomes a mess. And unfortunately, to break out of that downward spiral is really, really, really tough. So a lot of people, for example, they get fired from a job, and then their significant other leaves them. It's super common. I've had it where I have rough times in my business, and my love of my life will just leave. It's like, wow, like you're my best friend, bye. And and they didn't leave because I went broke. Oftentimes they go leave for someone who has less money. It's not even because I'm broke. It's because it broke me. It's not because I'm broke financially. It's because it broke me. And they felt that, and they lost attraction. They lost respect, and then they lose love. So, and that's natural. You can't hate on it. It's your responsibility to make sure you're on top of it. So you've got to understand that you can't just rely on the money or the looks or the validation or being a hater or being in some weird guru circuit, or things like that. Like you can't rely on that for your dopamine because those things are up and down. Likewise, you can't just shrink and hide from the whole dynamic and to cope because that's going to ruin your life. So what's the answer? I've got it for you. And I'm going to give you an answer that is going to profoundly change your life forever, okay? Here's what it is. I'm going to give you a couple of ancillary practices and then a main one. Ancillary practices are based on things like meditation, get present to the moment, very, very, very present in the moment, trains you to be present. Another one would be things like passions, right? Like, for example, or I would say presence, like meditation, purpose, like David Deida, finding your purpose. Have you ever read David Deida, The Way of the Superior Man? I'd say, presence, purpose. I'd also say your passion. So what is your passion? Maybe for example, there's the statue from Atlas Shrugged. You ever read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand? Atlas Shrugged, right? Your passion, your business, what it is that you love. I'd also say positive life, right? Having a positive life, those things help too. Also, physical movement, right? So it's all these P's, right? Presence, passion, purpose, positive life, physical movement, right? Like physiology, right? These are things that can get you very, very present, right? You take so much action, you shut down the thinking mind. So these are ancillary things that are very, very, very powerful. All that being said though, okay, all that said, what I'd also say is that is your baseline state. But in addition, you can do what's called active state control. And here's what it shows you. Ultimately, you've got to always get yourself in a loop where you're stacking wins. Learning from losses, but stacking wins. You'll say this do you, say you're feeling bad, do you really need someone to listen? Do you really need someone to comfort you? Or do you need to just start winning again? Have you forgotten how to win? Right, sometimes we collectively forget how to win. It's crazy, right? There's a beautiful church behind me. I often feel the church in some ways, not entirely for sure, but in some ways it's forgot how to win. So perhaps you got to start to remember how to start winning again. And what that means, start winning again, is that you can actually control your frame of what winning is. So rather than just saying, well, I only win if I have the watch or I have the car, I only win if I have these things that magazines tell me are win, right? Kind of like the movie Fight Club clowns on. I got the IKEA whole set, I'm winning, right? Rather than looking to consumer culture to tell you if you're winning, or for external validation to tell you if you're winning, what you do instead is you create your own frame. And so you might say to yourself, a simple exercise would be you go touch that pole right there, come back and you high five your friend. Then maybe you go say hi to someone, whether they like you or not, you come back, high five your friend. Then you come back and you just go, you just jump up and down the air and you high five your friend. Maybe then you go talk to somebody else. You come back and you high five your friend. And what you've done now is you've kind of tricked your brain, so you don't need a Ferrari, you don't need to be super jacked to feel like you're winning, to release that state. But instead what you do is you start to actively control your state. Now you say to yourself, well, that's stupid, that's not winning. Look, if you're someone who's able to, right? If you're able to jerk off, okay? And you can literally sit there tricking yourself to believe that you're hooking up with somebody until you pop. I think you have good state control, a lot more than you think. You can literally sit there using your own hand, if you're a girl, your own finger, to pop. You can control your state. You have incredible state control, okay? If you've ever fapped, you have state control. You can literally hypnotize yourself to think that you're intimate with somebody. So that being the case, you do have state control. And I'd advise you to use that as an example to have absolute state control. And what you do is you make a little mission for yourself. For example, with socializing. I'm gonna say hi to everybody here. I'm gonna open all, minimize time between interaction, 1,000 out of 10. Okay, voice or end of the month of travel, 1,000 out of 10. Who the heck would have the balls do that? I'm just being polite out here, okay? Families around. Who the heck would have the balls do that? Maybe tweak it a little bit, so now you actually like the feedback. You're like, hey, I'm happy because I'm tweaking it a bit. Good. And you find something funny about it to pump your state. So now you've given yourself a feedback sandwich, you've given yourself that love. You had a win because most people would never do what you just did. They don't have the courage to. So you got dopamine from the process. And what happens is dopamine stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks. As dopamine pulls in your brain, do you have to have this perfect line? Do I have to give you my perfect conversation starter? Do I have to give you my perfect line, my perfect tease, my perfect suggestion of where to go? No, you don't. It doesn't hurt to have it, I guess. But getting that from me is just a way for you to increase your winner effect. You trying to memorize a line is trying to provoke a reaction out of somebody to get them like you to increase your winner effect. What if you just internalize that process via your behavior? And like I said, positive life, presence, purpose, passion, physiology, all that stuff, all the P's. But then in addition, that's your baseline state. That's your baseline state. The nutrition that you eat, going to the sauna, cold plunge, baseline state. But then you have active state control that you can initiate anytime. Or what you do is you just control your own state. And when you do this, you've now created the reality tunnel that you live in. You're no longer the consumer of somebody else's frame. You're not someone else's bitch. You're not somebody else's little bitch, okay? Rather, what you're doing is you have literally like a magician gone and just created your own reality tunnel. And then now you've jumped down your reality tunnel and you have direct access over your state. And what happens is you may go decades without ever getting in a bad mood, because even as you get brought down a bit, you might use that to reflect, oh, did I do something wrong? And then boom, you go back into a good mood because you have active state control. So you have your baseline state that you build in day-to-day habits, passions, purpose, and all that, physiology, all that. But then you have active state control. And that's what I'm getting at here is I built $100 million in sales and helped other people to do billions in sales, and I mean mega billions in sales, by having the confidence, people gaining the confidence to become ambassadors for their brand, people building personal brands, people building social media, people becoming better at work, getting more promotions at work because they have more charisma, people coming up with multi-million-dollar ideas, people winning in political campaigns. And people come to me and they say, oh, it's so cool how much you're in the flow or charismatic or whatever. And what is it really? It's just what I'm teaching you here. It really is. It really just is. It's something that you can go do right now. You can, right now. You can do it right now. So what are you gonna do? Your whole life's in front of you right now. You can control your state, you can open up your mind, you can unleash your genius right now. What are you gonna do? I promise you in this video, it's not clickbait. What are you gonna do? You're gonna take this as entertainment, or you're just gonna take this as a call to action to change your life? The choice is yours. You have the red pill, you have the blue pill. It's right in front of you, like in the movie. The choice is yours how you're gonna change your own life. So I ask you now, you are in the driver's seat. You are in control. You have now learned the hypnosis that's shut everybody down. It's created wars. That's made people miserable. That's made people politically polarized. That's created all this chaos. You've seen the mechanism, what's going on, the mass derping. And you can choose right now to awaken, right now, and be that awakened being for your friends, for your family, for the people you serve. You've chosen to do that. And so I ask you, what is it that you're gonna do? And I hope you take the right path. This is it. This is your big day. This is your awakening. Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, one of the books that changed my life in my 20s. Changed my life. Fountainhead 2, among many books. Don't have to agree with all of it. Changed my life. And here it is right here. Just gaze on this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful work of art right here. Gaze on it. Showing the potential of humankind. This is the end of a 1-month tour. I've been all over. The end of a 1-month tour. I've given everything I have. And there's no better feeling than just being emptied out. Being on the mission and giving everything you got is one of the best feelings in the world. Being on your purpose and doing it. And I wish that for you. Today is not just getting to a goal. Today is a new foundation from which to attack new heights. And we're going to go there together. I love you so much. And I'm so inspired. And I'll be back with more soon. Peace.